when Trump was elected, my biggest fear was simply that the country was just going to go further right. And I didn't really think that too many things were going to change. I just think that I thought the colors were, the true colors were going to come right back out. And I think that's what happened. So yeah, are people going to accept it? I don't think that people are going to accept it. I don't. People are not accepting it right now. And so that is a concern that I have because, it's not something that is not known. Second Amendment rights supporters are predominantly, though not exclusively, GOP supporters. And so that does kind of make me a little scared. I'm not going to lie about that. And I really hope that the country doesn't come down to petty infighting. I mean, it's already there, but to an actual situation where we're dealing with violence. That is my biggest concern. And I think, again, that we do have a system in place, and we should, as patriots, as Americans, we should believe in that system to where if there is any question about this election, then we allow the courts to decide it, and we accept the results. I mean, President Trump has placed dozens of judges in place, so he can't say that the courts are necessarily biased against him.
Thank you for mentioning that. One thing I wanted to ask you as a lawyer, let's say the Senate stays conservative. That means there's no replacing the Supreme Court, which means the Supreme Court now stays conservative. And they have multiple federal ideologues now in the federal court system, and they picked up House seats. So if you own the Senate, you're not going to pass any laws. If you own the Supreme Court, you're not going to get any legal challenges. What exactly is Biden going to get done when that's the case?
Well, it's the way our system is kind of almost set up to not get things done, it seems sometimes.
You heard it from a lawyer. Did you hear that? Could you repeat that one more time?
I feel like our system's set up to not get things done in a lot of situations. That said, it's also allowed, it's set up so that we have protection, so we don't go on either extreme. There's a purpose behind it. I mean, one of the negative results of that is gridlock. That said, I do think that, if things are going to get done, they need to get done on the ground. People need to be engaged. And so that's one of the great things about what has occurred. I mean, it was one of the great things that occurred under Obama. And under this administration, we've seen voter turnout like no other. And so I think the fact that people are engaged is really going to be the salvation of this country. As far as like what can the president do or cannot do, he's going to represent the entire country, and not only, and whether, regardless of whether you stand on the political spectrum, that you should feel comforted to some degree that at least some of your interests are going to be protected. That said, not everybody's, not all your interests. There was a lot of things that are not going to get done that I would like to see get done. I hope he gets things done, but I keep
hearing that word a lot today.
I hope. But I know that a lot. Like I said, I know a lot of things that I support are not going to get done. They're not even going to get on the table. That's
what. What? Let me ask you another question. What does it say to you as a Californian? You're here in California. Because I'm asking everybody this question. These are statistical facts.
Okay.
And I get a variety. So, 2016, Hillary won the popular vote, not the electoral, popular vote. She won it by the number of votes here in California. 2020, Joe Biden wins the popular vote, not in the electoral, but he wins the popular by the number of votes here in California. Which means in 2016 and 2020, 2 elections in a row, a majority of your fellow Americans said, the guy who said Mexicans are rapists is cool, and the guy who said send ethnic minority congressmen back to their shithole countries is cool. Does that make you comforted as a Californian, knowing that a majority of the voters outside of California supported the white supremacists 2 times in a row?
Again,
How do you explain that? How do you wrap your head? I see people waving the flag going, America, America is not that.
Yeah.
Half of the country said, yeah, we are, twice.
Right.
What is America to you?
What is America is a melting pot, literally a melting pot.
Half full of white supremacists?
I don't think that it's half full of white supremacists. I think like, first of all, the Electoral College, the number of votes in the middle of the country is disproportionate to the population.
This is the popular vote. I'm talking about raw numbers of voters, not the Electoral College. A majority of voters, or damn near half, 2016, 2018, said that's our guy.
I mean, it doesn't comfort me, that's for sure. Why do they feel like that? It's a different world. Our California is very different than the Midwest.
What? Could you say that one more time?
I mean, California is very different than the Midwest, but there's different reasons for that. I mean, we have to deal with each other in this country. We have to deal with our diversity. It's not everybody comes to acceptance in various different ways.
Sure.
I think a lot of it comes from the heart, but it also comes down to how are you seeing? I mean, are you seeing poverty? Are you living in the comfort of you were able to buy a nice large country house for $200,000,
sure,
and you're comfortable, and you see you see the poverty, and you see the violence that occurs in urban cities, and you think, oh, those are liberal strongholds.
Sure.
It's their fault. I mean, I think it's way too complicated to just call like the center of the country racist, and everybody else is smart and accepting and loving. I think it's.
Well, I tell you, this is the way I put it. There's a guy wearing a KKK robe, and I stand right next to him, and I go, I'm not with him, but I'm going to stand next to him for 4 years in a row. Am I really not racist?
Oh, I'm not saying there's no racism.
What? What?
I think racism is way too complex to really define based on political parties.
So people who are okay with the guy saying Mexicans are rapists, but they're not necessarily hardcore white supremacists themselves. They're just okay with the guy that says, yeah, Mexicans are rapists.
No, I'm not saying that they're not okay. I think there's a lot of cognitive dissonance that's going on with people who say they are not racist and who probably in their everyday life do not behave like a racist person would, quote unquote, behave. So there's a lot of cognitive dissonance in their voting. But I also don't believe that because you carry a Biden-Harris flag or you carry the liberal flag that you're not, or that you don't carry some level of racism. I think racism is too complex to divide or to categorize based off of, political
Sure.
parties. That's my view on racism. Sure. I think we do a disservice to actually getting rid of it, to simply call Trump a Trump supporter a racist and not view our own biases. I'm
Sure.
not saying that Biden supporters are racist, but
Sure.
I'm simply saying that everybody has biases. So I personally prefer not to, talk about racism in as far as party line.
Okay.
Or even
I'll get rid of the term.
I'm talking about racism.
Yeah, a majority of Americans outside of California said. A majority of Americans outside of California, 2016, said, I'm cool hanging out with a guy who says Mexicans are rapists and I can violate women on sight. That's whatever you want to call that.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
That's not good, right?
No, it's not. I mean, it's not good by far. I mean,
What does it say when they doubled down on that 4 years later?
I mean, it's a sad state of it's a sad state, of the country. I mean, that's all you say. But again, there are people. I think racism, sexism, colorism. There are problems that are inherent. I don't want to say inherent, but they run deeper than political lines.
Sure.
And if we really want to address those issues, then we need to talk to the people that are actually affected by them, not simply go based off of what the left or the right says. We need to go to the. If we want to talk about racism, let's go talk to people who are actually dealing with racism, whether that's African Americans, whether that's Mexicans. And then the issue of racism also. We have an issue of otherness, period. Or, whether that otherness is because of the way you express your culture, whether you're an immigrant, whether you're documented. There are a lot. These are complex issues that if we continue to just see them as a left versus right, we're never going to get past them. We need to actually talk to the groups, to the individuals that are working to address these issues, and look at what is working and what isn't working. Look at the actual statistics. Look at our own cities. Because one of the things that we're not talking about, the local elections have been kind of overshadowed by the presidential election.
Sure.
What is going on here? What are the propositions that were, that passed or didn't pass in California?
Right.
Where is, what are we seeing? So, yes, I think it's very unfortunate that we have, half of the country, like you said, basically saying, yay for the guy that, twice in a row. Yeah, it's ridiculously unfortunate.
As a Mexican, that terrifies the shit out of me.
Oh yeah, of course. And as a Mexican, as a woman, as an LGBT individual,
Right.
of
Isn't
course.
that terrifying?
And it does. I have communicated to more than one person that, when a person I know votes for Trump, that is like a personal affront. And if they don't understand, first I expect them to at least get halfway there and understand where I'm coming from.
Right.
But like that said, I do believe if we're going to make any progress, we have to look at what is actually going on. Stop treating politics like a football game, and actually look at what is going on in the field, rather than, I support this or I support that camp, because what we're doing is we have a tendency towards tribalism, as it is.
Yeah.
It's kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
And if we want to get beyond that, then we have to actually, I don't want to say, we kind of put down our banners for a second to actually address this. Now that said, I'm carrying a banner here. I'm not.
Well,
you notice I'm carrying a banner that says.
Let's get that in there.
That talks about the value or rather an idea, rather than I'm not carrying a Biden-Harris sign. That's not because I didn't vote for them. I did vote for Biden-Harris, but I believe in the idea, not in,
Protect the vote, democracy
protect the vote,
matters,
yes.
no hijinks.
Right.
That's what people said at the protest earlier this week. I was really impressed because a lot of the people voted for Biden-Harris, but they didn't say that's why they were there. They said if Trump wins, then he wins, but let's not have hijinks. Just be quiet, let the vote happen, we'll accept. And I was really impressed. People were out here more for concern about making sure the government functions correctly than trumpeting their candidate.
What it's been. That's really what it's been these last 4 years. We haven't. Aside from the ugliness that Trump has brought out in his supporters and frankly in everybody, really the last 4 years and the pushback against Trump has not necessarily been against the GOP or against Trump. It has been against the degradation of our country, of its values,
Sure.
and we want a stronger America, and an America that represents the ideals of the Constitution. Now, everybody could, bring out their little constitution from their book and say this, I stand for this, but what does that really stand? And now, I believe that it stands for protection of everybody in this country. We have actual cases that say that if you are in this country, you don't even have a citizen, you have basic protections. And those protections have been eroded under the Trump administration. And that is not American, in my opinion.
Well, as a lawyer, let me ask you about the Supreme Court, right? Before Amy Coney Barrett, they said that they struck down part of the Obama healthcare thing. They kept up part of the Muslim ban. They said Trump can divert some money to the funding. That's the Supreme Court. That's the law of the land. What if the Supreme Court says, you know what, the Senate's conservative, we're conservative, no more DACA, no more healthcare? Are you willing to accept that because that's the legal system working correctly as defined in the Constitution?
Well, first of all, that's not the legal system working correctly. If we're going to be, if the Supreme Court is going to make decisions based off of their biases, as because of the way they lean politically, that's not the legal system working politically. Now,
nothing in the Constitution says they can't. How do you prove that? And they basically work through the Constitution to do this.
Right. So this is one of my frustrations with a lot of the decisions that come out of the Supreme Court is, they're not strong law. I was frustrated with the Obergefell case because I think there have been opportunities to write decisions that are actually strongly supported by legal arguments, and sometimes we, I mean, I don't know how to express what I'm trying to say, but I think that this will be a test and an opportunity for the courts to write real law, not something that's just based off of biased politics. Now, if it, of course, I'm not going to stand by. I mean, what am I going to do I'm not going to say a call for revolution,
What can you do? That's the second time I've heard that we're interviewing people bringing up real issues and they eventually go, what are you going to do?
No, it's not what are you going to do. I don't know what I'm going to do right now. I mean, I'd have to be, as a lawyer, again, I'm not working on civil rights cases. So this is an opportunity for those lawyers that are working on civil rights cases to work their ass off. I'm sorry if that's a bad word.
No, that's fine. Yeah. I'm just as a lawyer, I got to ask you. I mean, they strike down DACA. They strike down a woman's right to choose. They strike down everything we care about, and they go, well, that's the court. That's the Constitution. You can't do anything unless you pass a law, and you can't do that because the Senate's not read. That's legal, as enshrined by law. How do you feel about if they take away all your rights using the very Constitution you cherish?
I don't think that they can. I don't think that they have the legal arguments to take away our rights.
They already supported the partial Muslim ban. That's taking away rights. That's the law.
The Muslim ban, I'm not justifying it, and I'm not saying it was proper, but there are some legal arguments that, it's like national security, COVID, whatever the situation was. But as far as, and again, I'm not a constitutional rights lawyer, so I'm not gonna say but I don't believe that there's that the case law supports banning the right to abortion. I think there are some factual situations that have changed, for example, that they will argue, for example, the fact that we have better technology now, so the viability of a fetus is, a fetus has a stronger chance of surviving. Those are factual arguments that will be made. And again, I think that this is the opportunity for the attorneys that will be arguing, those cases in favor, I guess, of, in the case of abortion, in favor of a person's right to choose, in the case of DACA, in favor of those protections. It's kind of like a get your work together. Don't just argue the case that will be the easiest to win. Make sure you have all your T's crossed and all your I's dotted.
Sure.
But that said, yes, what happens if the Supreme Court does take away those rights based off of something that they find in case law? What happens? Again, it really comes down to the people. One, push your representatives in the state to provide those protections. I live in California, so there's a lot of things that, even if they're overturned, I feel a little more protected. I'm somewhat in a safe haven. If you live in a state where maybe your representatives are not, necessarily mindful or really don't care about those rights, or have, then work to get somebody else elected. I mean, it's really the only thing we can do. When the government is not representing you, what do? You the people are, you don't just deal with it. You don't put your hands in your pocket and say, that's life. It is what it is. You do. I mean, whether it means, whether they are rallies, whether you go and support local government and local leaders that represent your values. You support them. You go and help their campaigns.
Right.
And so that even if when the federal government is not protecting you, the state that you live in, the municipalities that you live in are protecting you. I mean, we have, one of the arguments from the GOP has always been states' rights. Well, this is a time that, if the federal government, whether we find ourselves with Trump in the office for another 4 years under some weird, situation.
Well, you had brought up that he'd stacked the courts, and I thought that was brilliant. A lot of people don't say that, and I'm just wondering that if the courts say one thing, the only way you can overdo that is you have to get a law passed. Now, if the Senate's locked in, then that means the court makes a decision, it's over. And you're talking about community organizing, but how is community organizing in California going to affect Senate races in red states?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm not talking about only in California. In California, we're pretty much we're good.
Right, yeah.
And if you're a person in those red states and you feel you're not being represented, organize in your state. Get the people in your state to and I don't know what happens if you're like one person in a state that just completely, you move out of the state.
What if Kentucky likes racism and bigotry and they go, that's what we like, and we like senators who back that? What do you do? As California, what would you do then?
You come to the state of California. I don't know.
Did you hear that? When we actually got it all good, the answer was, get out, come to Cali. You are welcome here.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't have a solution for everything, but I do think it comes down to the people. Now, there's the question of, does Biden change the makeup of the Supreme Court? Now, I mean, and I don't think it's only about like stacking the court in his favor. Sure. Maybe the entire like judicial system, as far as the Supreme Court, needs to be restructured. I know that there's been discussions about that and having a completely different system. I don't have the ability to talk about that.
Yeah. But that doesn't happen unless you have control of the Senate.
Right. And so if we don't have the Senate, I mean, we've been in situations where we don't have the Senate. Again, it really comes down to the local issues. State and federal law protects kind of like broadly. So so yes, maybe DACA is overturned. Now, what can you do on the state level to protect people who are here? I mean, there are things that can be done. Now, are you able to frustrate the immigration process? I mean, there's ways to, I guess, suppose, you don't have to permit raids of, of school.
Well, actually, California can't do anything about ICE raids.
I know.
So what if the federal government and the Supreme Court says, you know what? It's totally cool for ICE to hang out right out front of the social services window at the California government. So if you are undocumented and you're trying to get your driver's license, you're trying to get anything, it's totally cool, which isn't the law now, but they say ICE agents can stand right outside. So if you're going to go get any money, you're going to get nabbed the second you come out. And they could do that, and we could do nothing about that.
Yeah.
What would happen then?
I guess how are they doing it? I mean, are they stopping? Again, I'm not an immigration attorney either, so sure. I don't know. Are they asking everybody that passes by to see their documentation?
Fair enough, but the California Supreme Court, the ICE officials were going into the courts, they were hanging out right outside the door, and the California Supreme Court said that's intimidation and get the hell out. Yeah. And so they did that. And so a lot of, I think, 3 million people here in California are able to interact with the California government in relative safety. What if that's completely removed and ICE officials are in the courts and hanging out because the Supreme Court says they can? Wouldn't that have a terrifying effect on 3 million people here in California?
Of course. But you're giving me a lot of what ifs that are
possible.
That are possible. I don't think that it's. I don't think that it is useful to. I don't think that it's useful to sit down and think of all. I mean, it's good to plan, but we can think of a lot of what ifs. I mean, our country can, in various situations, come down to a situation where all our rights are gone, including the rights of people who voted for Trump. Because once you take away the vote, the rights of citizens and non-citizens, it's a blanket. It's not like, I mean, nobody carries I voted for Trump or I didn't vote for Trump sign.
Sure.
Now, as far as like immigration goes, yes, they'd have to be profiling. How do you know when somebody is or is not?
Well, they were doing it, and the California Supreme Court said stop.
Right.
That was not countered by the federal Supreme Court, so it was allowed to stay in pass. What if the Supreme Court does encounter that? Then that goes away, and ICE can literally go back to what they're doing. But let me give you a real-world one. California passed a ban on high-capacity magazines for automatic weapons, so somebody can mow down 30 people. The federal court said you don't get to do that. So we literally lost that case. We don't get to have the gun protection laws we want. How do you feel about that?
again, it's sad. It's sad that people feel so fearful that they need a high-capacity magazine to protect their homes. I mean, we have protections. And it's. I mean, I really don't have a response to that. I don't know why we keep, especially on the gun issue. No one is saying that take away your guns. No one's saying that you don't have the right to protect yourself from a government, But we have protections. They're actually for. There's this claim of blue lives and protecting the police. You're actually making their jobs so much harder by having citizens carry high capacity magazines.
Sure.
Because at what point, I mean, unless you're again profiling, what point do you know who the criminal and who the hero is until something happens? And so it's
Sure.
I think that. I don't know. I'm kind of at a loss for words when it comes to a lot. Because
I got to ask, because these are real world issues,
no,
and they're
of course.
real world potential issues. I'm not, these aren't unicorn issues. This could actually
right.
happen, and
Right.
they did strike down the capacity magazine thing, which does put us more in danger, and people in California will be dead because of that.
Yeah.
And that's already the federal Supreme Court superseding California law. And the Ninth Circuit is almost all conservative to a level they haven't been since '77. So we're going to have a lot of California laws struck down. How does that mean that we're safe here if we pass laws to protect ourselves and they go, no? Does that allow us to feel safe here in California?
I mean, it doesn't in the larger. I mean, but again, I really do believe in community. Communities taking care of each other. Perhaps it's not the time to fight those cases. Perhaps, I mean, there are legal strategies that can be used, I suppose, to when we have a case, maybe it's not the time to take it to the Supreme Court. And if the case is taken to the Supreme Court by the other side, then again, it's up to the attorneys to make the best case that they possibly can make. But that said, I really do believe that we have, as citizens and as non-citizens, we have a responsibility to our local communities. Now, there are ways to make our communities safe and to protect each other by, that have little to do with the federal government and little to do with even the state governments. And it's about how we treat each other. It's about, even if not, I mean, we didn't pass, I think it was Prop 15. That was a great opportunity to better our community. And it's sad that people are willing to protect their money, and not even their money, the money of corporations,
right.
Over
Right.
bettering, the lives of children
Right.
who, I mean, for all the talk of gangs and increasing, the police budget and all that stuff,
Yeah.
that because of the safety of our community, that was a very almost guaranteed solution to the problem of children's ending up in access to gangs and finding themselves basically with idle hands. So I think that's sad, but again, it comes down to having conversations with community members and again and putting down our banners, because otherwise there's no conversation that's being had.
Fair enough.
I really do believe that if we're gonna solve any of these bigger problems, now that obviously that doesn't solve the issue of access to abortion. It doesn't solve the issue of whether your marriage as a gay individual will still be protected by the federal government. It doesn't solve those issues.
Right.
But it does solve, or it can potentially solve, the issue of how safe we feel in our communities, how accepted we feel in our communities, if the people around us are protective, and that works its way up. It's been a tough year, and I'm sure everybody's gone through the phases of nihilism, of I mean, what's it all for? Because you feel disenfranchised a lot of the times. You feel disempowered. But I think if we go down that route, then yes, things are going to fall apart, regardless of who's in office. But we have to, remind ourselves that we still have control. Like, we are still individuals. We have power, and so regardless of how we can decide how things go. Yes, there are powerful, there's government, but but a lot of that still comes down. So if we want to change the government, if it comes down to like, hey, the system is really not working for us and it's not working for anyone, then maybe it's time to change the way things work.
You heard it here. Thank you. I'll come
No
back
problem.
around. Thank you. Appreciate it.